recap of last year, we either hosted or co-hosted about 60 events. And we've kind of gone through and looked at those that worked really well, and you'll see some of those repeated this year. Some that not so well we probably won't do again. But it also came, as we continued to talk to the small business community, very evident that one of the ways the technology has to move up to the food chain is for small businesses to interact with larger businesses. And we got into some discussions with our friends here from Booz Allen Hamilton. They have some needs where small business could work with them and help satisfy those needs. So this is kind of the first of a series of events we'll be hosting through the year to try to connect the small businesses with the larger businesses. You can learn about them, learn about their needs. Highly recommend the networking afterwards, exchange business cards and information. And this is part of our entire effort to not just do work with the small businesses in AFRL, but try to get that technology into the warfighter's hands. And sometimes that path is that technology's in the small business, but it's got to transfer up to a larger business and maybe a couple of steps before it actually gets on a platform or a piece of equipment. So we want to create that environment so the bigger companies know you exist. You have information on who to call if you have a technology, and then it gets business to business. We're going to step away, and you guys figure out how's the best way to work together. So I'm glad you're here. This is the first of several you're going to see. Different areas, different pieces. I do want to point out one other thing is we're taking some things that come from our SBIR program. And Jim Sweeney there, Jim works for me. He's our Commercialization Readiness Program Manager for SBIR. We have pathways in the SBIR program where we write transition plans and we try to link the SBIR companies with the primes and the PEOs and the folks in the Air Force that have money. We don't have that for all our other small business programs. So this is whether you're a SBIR business or you're doing a small business working with AFRL through BAA, or you're a small business and not done business with us before, you're all welcome, and hopefully this will be a good event to learn about how to move your technology up the food chain. So with that, I'll introduce Jim, and we can go from there.
Okay. Well, first of all, please silence your phones. We don't want to interrupt the speakers. And also, a little marketing here. One of Bill's great sites coming out in the Wright State Research Institute is please check out the DaytonTechGuide.com. It's a really good resource for everybody. It's still in the beta testing, but it's a great resource. We are going to have a new website coming out here pretty soon. Hopefully, we had a meeting with the small business, so for the Small Business Hub with Billy Grill. And he's going to, I would say, in the mountain next month, so make sure you check out our new site. Please, after this is done, please rate this for me. In the past, I've noticed that only like a couple people rate the meetings, so it's kind of hard for me to get any metrics from these colliders. It's really easy if you're a member of the collider events, so you just sign in and just rate it. Say a few words or whatever, and if there's any other colliders that you would like to see, please let me know, because we need ideas. Like Bill said, we did quite a few colliders last year. We want to increase on that. We just don't want to keep repeating the same ones over and over and over, so we need some new ideas. Les, do you want to say anything about the partnership series?
Well, I just think, I'm Les McFawn from Rock Rivers Institute here. I just think this is a very interesting opportunity. This is the first one of this type of series we've done, the partnership series, where it's an opportunity for you all as small businesses to hear from a larger business on what their particular needs are, where they may want a team with a small business. So kind of a low-cost opportunity for you all to listen and to say, well, is there a connection here that we can make after the meeting, 2 days after the meeting, or whatever. And I know Booz Allen is very much interested in that from their end. We're looking to set up other of these partnership series where we bring in other larger size companies to let you know what their interests are in terms of working with small business. And my sense is that it's not enough for somebody to come in and say, well, I'm company XYZ that does $3 billion worth of business every year, and here's my point of contact. To me, from your time point of view, you need to know that they're interested in working with a small business in an area that I'm confident in. And so I think we're gonna try and make that happen. We'll see. So as Jim said, we appreciate your feedback on this particular meeting. That will help us improve the next partnership meeting that we hold. And I think with that, I'll introduce Scott Fisher from Booz Allen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Fisher. I work here in the Dayton office for Booz Allen. Mike Bennett is with me also. And we'll tag team a few things here during the presentation. Just a little background on myself. I'm a retired Air Force officer. I've been with Booz Allen for about 5.5 years. My experience in the Air Force was in employing sensors, operations, battle management, command and control, those type of things. Mike has been with Booz Allen quite a bit longer, but he's gone the whole gamut, modeling and sim. He's very familiar with a lot of these models, and he helps lead our team here of folks that are involved in modeling and simulation. Just a caveat before we get started, this is focused on our modeling and simulation team. So there's other aspects of Booz Allen, other pieces of work that we do here in the local area and across the country that you may be interested in, or it may be even more appropriate than a modeling and simulation link. But we would be glad to introduce you to those folks within our firm also, if you'd like that to happen. Thank you. All right.
Go. I think I might have to do it first.
I did it before we get started. Did you? It worked, but
I figure it's my first meeting.
was it locked up? There we go. Got it. So just a snapshot of Booz Allen. The firm is about 23,000 employees, over 100 offices, headquartered in Northern Virginia. We celebrated our 100th anniversary in 2014. Clients primarily government, but we also do some commercial work, some international work, and some work with not-for-profit organizations. As far as expertise, you can see we cover quite a few areas. Some of the things that we're going to concentrate on today, though, are engineering and science, the operation analytics, systems engineering, those type of things. Yeah. I don't know what you did last time, but it worked. Okay. Our Dayton office, we have a little over 400 folks. We're currently over at Research Park. We've got quite a bit of office space over there. About 2/3 to 3/4 of our folks, though, are actually on client site. So we don't have a big footprint over there. But we have classified workspace at Research Park, and that makes up quite a bit of our work over there. Kind of the obligatory modeling and simulation pyramid. If you're involved in modeling and sim, I'm sure you're familiar with this. But just as a point of reference and kind of a launching point here, modeling and simulation can be divided into these different areas, and we do a little bit in every area. I'm going to kind of focus on a few of the examples and the models that we use in future slides here. But engineering level is something that is an engagement level, kind of a one-on-one modeling and simulation. For the type of work that we do, it's mostly survivability studies, vulnerability studies against different threat systems. So the radars, munitions, and we get down really into very fine detail as far as 1v1 engagements, what a person has to do to defeat a missile or a radar, how to defeat it electronically, those type of things. And if you're really looking for the great detail that you need to make, for instance, research and development or acquisition decisions, you need that level of modeling at the engagement and engineering level. As you come up the pyramid a little bit into the air combat mission levels of modeling, you'll hear brawlers, primarily an air-to-air model, and then Suppressor, EAD-SIM, AFRL are all examples of mission level models. So many type models, you're not going to get the level of fidelity that you get down here in the engineering and engagement, but you're really not looking for that. You're looking for broader effects and analyses to come out of those different types of models. Storm and thunder or campaign models, we don't do a lot of that here, but we have some capabilities. Kind of goes ebbs and flows as far as the work that we're involved in there. But all this work that we do in this area, there's a lot of it here in Dayton at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We also work and support other teams across the country, Booz Allen and other government clients, for instance, Northcom, CENTCOM, the different major combat commands within the Air Force, do a lot of modeling for them. I mentioned and kind of foot stomped the vulnerability and survivability, but a lot of these models can be used for very different things. For instance, ESAMS down here at the bottom of the engagement level is an enhanced surface air missile simulation. We actually used that for a client to model the effects of wind turbines as they rotate on the effectiveness of a radar. So we used the ESAMS code for that, but actually looked at placing wind turbines out certain distance from the radar itself and looking at the effects that they would have on the radar picture. They have sometimes a lot of effects, sometimes none at all. But they can be really personalized for the type of simulation that you're doing. Now, as far as constructive modeling simulation, that's kind of our bread and butter, and that was kind of demonstrated by some of the tools that we mentioned on that first slide. We do live and virtual involved in those type of simulations and live flies also. But this kind of gives you a laundry list of some of the types of things. Maybe some of these would pique your interest. I'm not going to go through each one, but some of the major ones here, I mentioned the foreign threat simulation and the munitions warhead weapon lethality analysis. We're not just interested in the survivability, for instance, of the platform, the weapons platform, but also the munition that's being launched. What chance does it have of actually doing its job? Radar modeling, we do both friendly systems as well as threat systems. The antenna modeling, which is a whole nother level of modeling that's very important to a lot of this, and I'll talk about that in a second. Electronic warfare, electronic attack, that's obviously pretty key to anything involving a radar, so we do that. Some other types, communications modeling via OpNet, air-to-air combat modeling, I mentioned Brawler is used for that. And then in order to actually get something out of all this modeling, it's sometimes pretty difficult unless you have a visualization tool, especially if it's not something you're used to looking at. So we actually have a visualization engine that we use specifically with ESAMS that I'll talk about in a second. Strategic analysis, I mentioned that at the top of the pyramid, do a little bit of that. And classified program analysis, we're the lead for the ECJA folks at LCMC as well as the Virtual Combat Lab over in the Sensors Directorate. As a summary, on-site support, these are some of our major clients over here. In our modeling and sim and analysis staffing snapshot, we're at about 70 folks. We do have a pretty large group of folks that are, as far as level of experience, 3 to 5 years, and then we usually grow them into leadership positions on the team. We've been really successful in joining with UD, Wright State, Ohio State University, other universities around here for internships. So we also have several students that are working part-time for us and transitioning to full-time employment in some cases. Here's a little bit, we were talking about the high fidelity model development, which is so important when it comes to the survivability and vulnerability studies. Here's just some examples of that. The missile model development, air defense artillery modeling, sensor modeling, and not just radars, but other types of sensors. And then specifically, I was talking about the weapons survivability. We work some projects with the weapons directorate down at Eglin and do modeling and simulation work for them, and actually have a modeling and sim team down there to support them. Mike, is there anything to add to this? Or?
No, I think that mostly covers that.
Good. Weapons system analysis, now we're talking more about many on many in this case, and also we're talking again about the weapons survivability. A lot of the work that we do in the simulations that we do, the analyses that result from that modeling and sim is very important for AOAs. So top right there, you'll see some of the AOAs that we've been involved in. I mentioned the Eglin projects. There's some of the research that we did and analysis for them. And then all that's put together on some scenarios, in some scenarios, and in many cases we work hand in hand with other contractors or the government to come up with realistic vignettes and scenarios to actually run. For instance, I mentioned Suppressor and EAD sim and HalfSim, those type of many on many and mission level modeling. You need accurate and credible scenarios to actually run those. So engagement level, again, bottom of the pyramid, we were talking about enhanced surface to air missile simulation, those type of one-on-one. These are all the very specific things that we're looking at in those simulations. And in the outputs, we're looking at all these as part of the analysis. At the end, survivability and lethality of ConOps variations. So looking at tactics, looking at ways of employing weapons platforms and the weapons that they carry. And it can be pretty detailed. ECMs, we're actually the model developer for the government on that, so we're actually updating that and sending out new versions of that to folks across DoD and other agencies that use it regularly. We actually teach classes in that also. I mentioned antenna modeling, and I thought it was important to mention, and again, I don't know if anybody here has some interest in that or some expertise. We have a team about 3 folks deep on antenna modeling, and we work with other contractors in many cases to provide accurate antenna models and updates to antenna models that are then integrated into those simulations. If you don't have an accurate model of, for instance, the search radar or the engagement radar, the antenna sail, your simulation's not going to be accurate. And it's very difficult. You're depending on, accurate data to put into the model and model these antennas, but it's pretty time consuming, but very important part of the model. The other thing that we do a lot of, and again, I'm looking for folks that might have some expertise in this along with us, is Pico. It's an electromagnetic scattering simulation, and it can be used for a lot of different things. They use it on the commercial side as well as the military side. But you're actually looking at an electromagnetic pulse that goes out and seeing how different targets, what happens to that electromagnet, how it scatters, what is absorbed. Those type of things can be used for a lot of different things. And for us, the scattering problems, we're looking at radar cross-section analysis of both large and small structures, as well as the diffraction and the reflection of signals. It's very important to our clients there. So there are other programs and other models that do this, but it's a pretty expensive tool to use. I think it's $50K for a version of this. And there's all kinds of toolkits that go with it for specific applications. But something that we're using more and more of, and we work with another office within Booz Allen over in the National Capital Region on some of these projects. So that's kind of engagement level, and that's antennas specific, looking at one-on-one type of engagements. Mission level modeling, I mentioned Suppressor a little bit more. And really, what's important to kind of gather here is up in the upper right kind of gives you an overview of all the things, an example of all the things that you can gather from running a scenario through Suppressor. You can change up tactics, the sensor systems, the terrain that is actually the scenarios being run in, command and control networks, electronic warfare, all those type of things that can be manipulated. Suppressor is one example. A couple other tools that you may hear used, and we have expertise in also EAD-SIM and AFSIM. AFSIM is very popular right now with a lot of clients, and it's something that provides some similar capabilities, a little bit different than Suppressor, but still being, I think, evaluated by the government as far as its use in modeling and sim. When you have an integrated air defense system, radars and the missiles are obviously the major components of that. But the command and control link is another big piece of it. So not just voice communications, but cyber communications. So there's a modeling and sim tool that's used primarily on the commercial side called OpNet that we've integrated with Suppressor so that you can actually model the cyber network that is associated with the radar system of an integrated air defense system. So if you take out a certain node, how does that affect their ability to accomplish their mission as a threat integrated air defense system? Dyads is another example of mission level, and this is, if you will, a competitor to Suppressor. But the one thing with Dyads that a lot of government clients like is the fact that it actually provides an air situations and weapons control display that the person running the model can see, and that's what the operator would see in these engagements. So it's a pretty neat dimension. It's used for has some specific applications, and we're using this daily over in the Sensors Directorate for models. So a lot of that again, produces lots of data and lots of information that has to be parsed through, analyzed, and presented. But in many cases, you're not going to be presenting to people that are running Suppressor or ESAMs or whatever every day. So that's where Hive comes in, and Hive is something that, again, we developed, it's government-owned, but it's been applied to a lot of the work we're doing here at Wright-Patterson as well as other places in the country that I'll mention. It integrates the existing simulations to an original simulation. It's both can be constructive or virtual. Visualization is the big piece, and you can see from the snapshots over here. We actually used this in that example that I provided about the wind turbines and the radar. We actually had the radar sweep coming through so you could actually see it as it passed through over a wind farm. And then we had a small private aircraft flying over the top of it, and you could see the sweep and what the wind farm did to the radar signal in certain areas. And then we actually had a display of the radar scope, and you could see the big area of feedback from the wind turbines that wouldn't allow the operator to actually see the aircraft fly through it. So that's a pretty basic example, but as another example of us being able to modify these models for different use, but without Hive, that would have been a very difficult thing to illustrate. Mike, anything else on Hive?
Yeah, a couple notes. That's a good summary. And certainly the developers of Hive that we have for the government, the V part of the visualization is always the eye candy and gets most of the glory. The I, the integration part, is what they would tell you is almost the harder part, getting models and simulations to talk to each other that weren't meant to. Say constructive models, for example, ESAMs, of a one aircraft flying by one surface-to-air missile site, running constructive. But let's tie in Blue Max, an aircraft flight path generator, and use Hive to get stick and throttle controls with that, make it run real time instead of much faster than real time, and then have it talk directly to ESAMs without wrecking the model itself. And so one of the things that they're very prideful of is that they can take a simulation without changing a whole lot of code, make it talk to another simulation, whether that's through DIS, TCP, or Direct Connect, whatever it may be. And so making those simulations talk to each other, now you can start to do things that, for example, at Lifecycle Management Center, they've never done, and looking at what maneuvers are effective against an SA whatever, for example. We had actual pilots come in using verified and validated threat models in ESAMs to do things like that, as well as the simulation to put them in there, whether it's in cockpit mode, so that lower right-hand corner, where you can have a pilot actually flying against that threat. And so now you can have validated threats and make them more in the live and virtual aspect, in the live, virtual, and constructive. So it's all C++, open scene graph, and it's government owned, so no proprietary.
The other, I briefly mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation, but they're actually using this for a debriefing tool out at Red Flag. And we talked to the Range Control Squadron up at Mountain Home Air Force Base also, because they're interested in using Hive. It allows for instance, flight crew, bomber crew, in Red Flag instance anyway, to go in and actually visualize, review everything that they did and what the threats did, and you get some great learning out of that, as opposed to the B-52 guys sitting in the back of the room with all the fighter guys in the front deconstructing how they either killed or defeated each other. The bomber guys are also interested in how did their jamming work against certain threats, how did their maneuvers work, was their timing correct, those type of things. So again, pretty good application. It's been very popular out there, and we've been out there for
6 years.
6 years now. So really good debriefing tool and post-mission analysis tool. So I mentioned Mike and myself here at the bottom. Mike Miles is our principal, and he's primarily, he's a leader of our modeling and simulation team, but he's also an expert specifically with ESAMs and sits on base over in EZJA. You can contact any of us. But what does this mean to you all? Really, we wanted to tell you what we did as a modeling and simulation team and introduce you to the capabilities that we have. When we came over and talked to Bill, October, November, I think it was, our reason for coming over was we really, in some cases, when a BAA comes out, a SIBR, whether it's locally or somewhere else, we're often, there's a gap somewhere where we're looking within Booz Allen or other businesses, and there may be some things where they're very appropriate for a small business to take, and then we could be your partner. And so we talked to Bill about how to more effectively connect and at least get the word out as to what we're interested in and how we could be a good partner to you in your efforts. So we have experience in working with small business. Most of our contracts involve small businesses. We are the sub to small businesses in some of our work, so I think we're very good partners and good teammates. And that's really what this was all about, is just kind of get the word out and know that Booz Allen does more than just financial analysis and everything that, because when I first joined Booz Allen and met people wherever and told them, oh, you're an accountant, well, no, I have somebody else do my taxes because I can't handle it. So, but it's really been a great place to work. I really enjoy it. I think the teammates that we've had on the contracts that we have right now. We've got some great working relationships and some lengthy ones, and a lot of those are with small businesses. So we really just wanted to get the word out and tell you about what we did from a modeling and simulation perspective anyway. Mike, anything I missed or anything?
That's a good coverage, and I think your point about us working with smalls is good, and that we're trying to expand on that, because there's so many things that small businesses can bring that I know you know as well, some of the, especially the innovative parts that maybe we've not done before, whether that's, we do so much of the modeling of hardware, but locally we aren't doing much hardware development itself, prototyping. Some parts of Booz Allen do that at other scattered reaches, but a lot of times AFRL, especially locally, they want those locally that they can reach out and touch. Software development, maybe cyber, as we're trying to add cyber effects into modeling and sim. Flight testing, we don't do anything like that. Hardware integration, virtual reality is kind of a new thing. So there's other things that can be added into these capabilities, or that maybe we could add into yours, depending on the situations.
And we kind of found ourselves, say a BAA came out that we were interested in pursuing also from that perspective. And some of us knew of small businesses that were involved in that. We knew that there were many others out there that we didn't even approach, and that might have been interested in either leading it or partnering with us, and we didn't even know that they were out there. So again, that was one example and kind of an eye opener for me. The other, with the SIVers and so forth, we did pursue one SIVer a couple years ago. We went through the list, and we were a partner with a local firm on that. But there may be there were many, for instance, this past round that had some ties to some things that we did. But we weren't really approached by anybody, and we didn't know who to talk to directly about some of those things if they needed some help or wanted a large business partner on any of it. So, we're open to that also. So that really is it. Again, I want to emphasize the fact that this is just modeling and sim discussion, but I will gladly point you in the right direction to other folks within Booz Allen here in our Dayton office. But is there anything that Mike or I could answer for you? Any follow-up questions or anything for us?
Yeah, let you take questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned you had about 70 employees on staff. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold.
Oh, sorry.
Of those 70 employees, what's your division sort of between software development and, let's say, RF engineers or engineer scientists?
I'll let Mike finish here because he's probably going to have some great detail that I don't. My observation has been, though, that even with developers, we want developers that have a engineering approach to things and understand the larger picture. So we've hired, for instance, computer science, computer engineering majors, but they also took a radar class that we developed so that they have appreciation, and vice versa. Engineers that didn't do a whole lot of coding, maybe since high school or their freshman year in college, but now we're expecting them to get more involved in coding. A lot of these models are Fortran, and MATLAB and Fortran are pretty similar, so it's pretty easy for a lot of these folks right out of college or someone that's used MATLAB to be able to deal with them. C++ is something that we also look for some of our radar modeling, and Hive, as we mentioned there, but that's kind of been mine. So I don't know that I could give you a percentage, but we look for both, and we don't really get too hung up whether it's working with a small business or hiring somebody on what their major is or what their expertise is specifically. They may have some broader knowledge that would be applicable to what we do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the follow-up question was
Yeah.
then sort of how much work is being done on the software side of the simulation tools versus running the tools and putting the models in?
Well,
and from the skill set of the people that you have on staff, it sounds like you do both.
we do. Mike, how would you?
Yeah, so to sort of wrap that up, I think we got about 15 folks on that team of 70 that are doing C++ day in, for things like that. And the rest of them, as Scott was saying, are more, especially double E's, physics, aero engineers. that also have to dive into the code to do something. And a lot of the work we get isn't, hey, go make cool new features in eSAMs or whatever model. Rather, the bulk of the funding comes, we need you to do an analysis of this concept weapon, or how many widgets should we get to overtake a particular SAMSUNG. Well, to do that study, step one is always, well, we got to tune up the model, maybe add a new capability, update Intel data, that sort of thing. To get to the point, now we're ready to do the analysis, and so it's all engineering based. So, probably closer to 90% are the folks are diving in to do some coding, but as Scott was saying, it could be MATLAB, Simulink, Fortran, believe it or not. But I would differentiate and say probably 10 to 15 are doing just really hardcore C++. The rest are doing engineering with some coding to maintain existing simulations.
Thank you.
Bill, did you want to cover something on this slide?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of point out, this is kind of exactly what I was trying to connect in this kind of a meeting. Booz Allen has a direct connect to our warfighter. The warfighter has needs, they have tools. You may be sitting there with the next generation software, visualization, maybe even a hardware device that could really help us. And if you don't know Booz Allen's working this, and if you don't know how to talk to them, we'll never see that. So again, as you have seen these areas, highly encourage you to talk to Booz Allen, but also feedback to us is, does this help you in your business thinking and planning to take your technologies and get that into maybe a platform that our warfighter's using right now, or create another business opportunity for you because you know an interaction with them in this bigger hardware or software package might be valuable.
There's some other areas I mentioned, antennas, I really hit that kind of hard. I've glossed over hardware on the FPGA side. We've in the last year and a half to 2 years developed some FPGA models also that kind of allow us to apply software models to hardware and get some even more credible results before live testing is done. And that's about 2 deep of people. So that's another example of, if a small business has some expertise in that, might be a nice little fit for something like that. Another thing that's been very prevalent here on base is the anti-tamper, anti-counterfeit type work and research. We have some people that do that, but by no means do we have a lot of expertise here. So as some opportunities pop up in those areas, if you have some expertise there, that would be something that we'd be interested in talking to you about. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
One comment. I don't know, you guys talking about trying to link up with small businesses based on what's out there for the SBIR program. So the big boys, Lockheed and Boeing, they put out, they take their lists circulated internally, and they put out a list to, I don't know how they generate but it's to 1,000 small businesses, and they create a spreadsheet that says, here's the 150 Air Force topics or the 300 DoD topics. These are the topics that we are interested in hearing from small businesses about, and here's a point person that you could reach out to if you want to create some type of relationship. So
We did talk to Bill about that a little. We were a little late. It was like November or so.
Yeah.
And we were kind of wrapping our brains about it, but I think that's a great idea. And we'll work with the hub here to maybe do that more effectively next year.
Has that been effective for you?
Yeah,
Sounds like a great process.
it's been a great tool because, a lot of times, you'll even see it in the solicitation, it'll say, highly recommended that you team with a prime contractor or an OEM, and, some small business that's 7 guys with the latest Hive 2.0, who doesn't know a Lockheed Martin, the guy that can provide the right letter of support is working in the right group. It takes months, years to figure out who that person is. So if you've got someone on the inside, you could quickly call and say, oh yeah, you should talk to John Jones because he's our Hive 2.0 expert. That's great. So, like you've done a good technology, hopefully from a small business, but, you know, it's something you guys care about, that you feel that you can bring to the table. And I know from a big business perspective, I think part of they've looked at this and thought, well, there's $300-400 million a year in the Small Business Innovative Research Program. How can we get our hands on that? You know, how can we participate to bring some value to that? Because we've got cyber companies pestering us all the time. So, you know, obviously phase 2 is more money and more lucrative to, you know, something you guys could really bring to the table. So, just a thought.
No, it's a great idea,
Get the
and
message out.
I think you kind of laid out something that we kind of thought about, but not to that level, and I wasn't aware that folks did that, so.
It's an email that usually comes out a month or two before, right, a month before solicitations are due. It's just a spreadsheet that they put together. There's topics that there's no name on it.
Yeah.
Which means they don't have anybody. Just a thought.
So again, this is great sharing sort of a best practice from others that maybe you want to incorporate and connect with businesses, but don't feel if you're not a cyber company that you're being excluded. You know, last year, AFRL spent $1,084 million with small businesses. About $300 million of that was cyber companies. So you may be a BAA company, you may be a subcontractor to someone else on a BAA contractor. You know, again, how do we create an opportunity space for you to learn more about not only cyber, but all our programs in AFRL that you might have technology to help us with?
Yes, sir.
I run the Air Force Commercialization Readiness Program, and that's a part of the cyber program. We have a thing that we do every year. It's called technical interchange meetings. We've got meetings where we get with MAGCOMs, we get with PDOs and the labs, and we try to work that in so that we pull in the small businesses to hear what those guys have for what keeps them up at night. Then we also have another thing called the TIMs, Technical Interchange Meetings. This is where we specifically go after the big guys, the Boeings, the Harris, the Raytheons, and all those folks. And very, very successful. That's where it takes about 6 months to put one of those on because there's a lot of background work that has to go on. You identify what you're looking for, kind of like this. And what we do is my team, then we go in and we data mine and we hunt down the small guys that have potential of satisfying your needs. We provide that list of companies to you. You say, yeah, that's a great company. We'd like to talk to them. You know, they provide a little bit of a capability statement so you know who and what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Start that dialogue. And then during the day, usually it's a 2-day event, we'll bring them in and we do the specific one-on-one meetings where you get with each individual company, your subject matter experts, the guys in the trenches in your company, will actually talk to these guys. And it's really great. Now, granted, I'm associated with the SBIR program, but this particular thing is, if you guys find a match, you know, you think this gentleman here has what you're looking for, we even set it up where you guys are communicating, get the dialogue going, and then we're looking for you guys to do the business and society defense, you know, passing the checkbook, you know, all that kind of thing. Bring their technology in, and it works really, really well. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we advertise for it in the fall time frame. I think you missed this year, but for next year, if you could track on to the FedBiz Ops, we do advertise that we're looking for the large companies. We've got Northrop Grumman, we've got Lockmart, we've got Lockheed, the Boeing, we've got Harris, and ATK, and a couple others that said, yeah, we're interested. A couple of them are return players. And my budget pays for a large chunk of all the background info. We actually do follow-up with that meeting. So we know that you talked with this gentleman, and we'll follow up and say, hey, remember when you guys talked about you were talking about this. And typically what happens is you leave the meeting, you go back, and then you've got that thing called work, so you get involved with that. You may overlook the fact that you had this. Well, we bring it back to the surface, and that's worked very well to get these companies talking and getting the business started. Not necessarily SBIR. It's, getting the business done. You've got shortfalls. We're trying to satisfy those. And you're also bringing in the small guys. Sorry, are you a small guy?
Depends on the NAICS code, right? 700.
Okay, right,
Small, smaller.
well, for this moment, you're a small guy. So anyway, the point is, we do have, and it's one of the very successful things that we've done. SAFAQ is extremely happy with it. We broadcast, and this is what Bill Harrison brings to his leadership about what we're doing. Like I said, it's not just SBIR, it's small business related, but we're working with the big guys to make sure, you've got all kinds of things that you're doing, you don't have all the bandwidth to hit the small guys, and they bring something that you don't have. We're trying to make those introductions. You have your A-list of guys you always go to, but you always get what you always got. So if you bring someone new in, you get a new idea, and that grows your business, and it definitely grows a small guy. But that's something that we offer. My program, very successful, and it's a blast to do. Great getting everybody together. So in the future, I'll leave a card with you, but in the future, in the fall timeframe is typically when we advertise in the FedBiz Ops, and it's strictly for the large companies. And then we'll go hunt down the small guys and bring small and medium guys, and we'll bring those in to you.
So one thing maybe he didn't quite bring out is he'll work with you on very specifics. You had pretty broad brush areas, okay? So, take antennas, maybe you've got 4 indentures down of things. If you share that with his team, then he can data mine primarily the civil companies in a wide range of things that would be a lot more detailed than we do in kind of this kind of meeting. So this is, again, something we want to do at multiple levels. Let the businesses locally know who to contact here. You can work with my team, Jim here specifically on time in December, and we're trying to figure out how to bring other small businesses that are doing business with us into this thinking. So,
What is the title of that event then?
It's a technical interchange meeting.
Period, that's, okay.
Yeah, real
I
simple.
don't,
But a lot of real happy folks at the end.
Okay.
It's a little bit of work up front, but you're not going to have to dedicate full-time employees for it.
yeah.
But we get what you're looking for, and then we take it back and do a whole lot of work behind the scene, bring it together, and then that's where you get a match made.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you. Any other questions?
Is Hive used for non-airborne munitions, like SAMs or ground?
Yes. Yeah, we've used it for SAMs, for air defense artillery, for ground vehicles.
Man-pads?
Man-pads, yeah.
Yeah.
And we just actually used it recently to look at directed energy weapons around the national capital region. So high energy laser, high energy, high power microwave, things like that. Just to visualize simulation results as well as it has its own simulation capability.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about your hypersonic weapon trajectory and signature requirements? There was like a bullet on one of the slides that was some of the stuff that you guys have done.
Tell me if,
That was related to,
back, like,
Right there.
Yeah.
Just past it.
One more.
this one?
No, the one that you, right after this. Yeah, under the systems analysis, the last bullet thing.
so
Oh,
one of the things we did was a study called Trespass. It was for AFRL RQ, where they're looking at hypersonic vehicles and how effective would they be against surface-to-air missiles to make it on target, because they're flying reasonably high but really, really fast. and how fast is fast enough. And so being able to model that. And so that was one of the key things that we had done at Hypersonic.
Anything else? Steve, you're not gonna?
I think I will, Scott.
I mean, you're my
now that
neighbor.
you mentioned it. Will we get a copy of this presentation by chance, just so we can sort of catalog that
It'll be out on the website, out on the meetup,
and hit in Scott's video too?
Yes.
You can watch me on YouTube tonight if you want, Steve.
Give me a couple days to get that out there.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry,
Jim will post it out on YouTube, actually, so. But you can go out to the meetup site and it should have the information on how to pull it off the archive.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone from the hub here and Wright Brothers, and thanks Les and Bill. Welcome.
Yeah,
Day 3 for Jim.
day 3, yeah.
But thanks for being here. If you got further questions, I have cards here. Mike's brought his cards. We'll be around to chat if you want. Got some questions that you want to pick off offline. Thanks again. Appreciate it.